All right, you guys are working hard. I remain impressed with what you guys are doing. We're going to move on from review and into something new. The good news is, some students in my last class period said that the new stuff was actually easier than the old stuff for a couple different reasons. One being, the new stuff is added to the old stuff, so you're going to continue to practice what you already have learned. Okay? Now, the new stuff is presented in the packet that you picked up at the beginning of class. We're going to start walking through that. Okay? You're going to have to continue to work hard, continue to be with it, continue to ask questions, and continue to work together to understand the stuff that we're going to go over now. All right, let me pull up what you guys are looking at. Okay. Previously in the class, we discussed prepositions and prepositional phrases. And I had said, hold on to that, we're going to come back to it. We're going to start looking at prepositional phrases more in depth today. We're looking at prepositional phrases because there's another technique for adding variety to your sentences, using prepositional phrases in a different way. All right, why don't you take a moment and turn to page 154 in your textbook. There, you will find a list of the most common prepositions. So on page 154, you see words like above, and in, and under, and across, and with, and through. Okay? Everybody find page 154 in that list? Okay, a prepositional phrase begins with one of those words, one of those prepositions, and it ends with an object. It ends with a noun or a pronoun. Okay, so I gave you this demonstration before about prepositions, okay? Where is the marker now? On my head. Okay, that is a prepositional phrase. It begins with the word on, and it ends with this noun right here. Okay? Alright, where is the marker now? In my ear. Begins with the preposition in. You'll find that on 154. It ends with this object, this noun, ear. Okay? I can walk across the room. Across the room is a prepositional phrase. I can walk through the door. I could throw the marker at you, but I wouldn't. Okay? At you, that's a prepositional phrase, beginning with a preposition, ending with the pronoun you. Okay? So, in your packet, on the screen here, I have some examples. Over the river, through the woods, to grandmother's house, with whom, to whom, under the table, over my head, from California. Those are all just examples of prepositional phrases. On your sheet, you'll notice underneath the arrows, that was a prepositional phrase, right? You'll see that there's a place. I want you to write for me 4 examples of prepositional phrases. All right, I'm hearing, I see good things. Okay, we're going to have a quick, just prepositional phrase barrage here. Raise your hand, I'll point, and just give me a prepositional phrase, okay? Yep.
Across the street.
Across the street, go. Give me another one. Go.
Despite all appearances.
Okay, good.
Behind the door.
Behind the door.
Under the table.
Under the table.
Before I start.
Before I start. Okay, I'm so glad that you came up with that. Before I start. Let's look at that. Okay, before is a preposition, right? Is it only a preposition? Do you remember in the activity we were just doing? And there was the, what was it? Before
She planted it.
Before she planted, yes. There was this before she planted? Okay, this is tricky, and this is one of those things that make you say, ugh, English language. Okay, before is in fact a preposition, but it's also used as a subordinating conjunction or a dependent word. It creates dependent clauses. So before can create a dependent clause, it can also create a prepositional phrase. Before I start, look at what you have here. You have a subject and a verb.
Yeah.
You have a dependent clause. Okay? Same as this, dependent clause. Alright, so before what? Before
Dinner.
dinner. Notice the difference? Preposition, object. Preposition, or I'm sorry, dependent word, and then you have your subject and verb. Okay? Tricky. So before dinner, before the game, before bedtime, before the movie, before the test. Those are all prepositional phrases. Before we watch the movie, that is a dependent clause. Before we won the game, before I graduated, those are all dependent clauses. Okay? So, I apologize for the English language. Okay? I can do nothing about it. I was waiting for somebody to come up with that. Thank you. Alright. So, give me another one of your prepositional phrases.
I have to my house.
To my house. That is truly a prepositional phrase. Okay. Very good. Alright, now, what I want you to notice that many of your transitional expressions are prepositional phrases. For example, okay, she had many hardships this year, semicolon. For example, her dog died and she was cut from the basketball team. For example is a prepositional phrase. You have a preposition and an object. On the other hand is a prepositional phrase. Of course is a prepositional phrase. So you already have practice using prepositional phrases the way that I'm going to teach you how to use them. When you begin a sentence, or when you have a clause after a semicolon, and you have a transitional expression, what do you need after the transitional expression? Comma. Okay? So, in just a bit, I'm going to talk about beginning sentences with prepositional phrases. And I'm going to talk about how, when you do that, you always follow the prepositional phrase with a comma. Okay? Before that, though, I want to talk a little bit more about prepositional phrases and why we use them in general. Okay, we all know what an adjective is. Right? Tell me, someone. What does an adjective do?
Describe.
Describes, yes, what does it describe? Someone, something, so one person. A noun. Okay, an adjective describes a noun. And we know that an adverb usually describes a verb, sometimes describes other adverbs or adjectives. A prepositional phrase can describe nouns or verbs. In other words, prepositional phrases such as over my head or under my shoe, prepositional phrases can act adverbally or adjectivally. They can act as adverbs or adjectives. So let's look at an example. A man with green shoes robbed the bank. Notice how with green shoes describes what?
Man.
The man. Okay? With green shoes describes the noun of the sentence. With green shoes is acting as an adjective. It's acting adjectively. The family down the street got a new dog. Down the street is the prepositional phrase describing family. Okay. As I said, prepositional phrases can also describe verbs. The athletic girl ran where? Around the block. Around the block tells us information about where she ran. Okay, so it's describing the verb. It's acting as an adverb. The tiny man sang in a deep and loud voice. In a deep and loud voice describes how he sang. So it's describing the verb some. So prepositional phrases will describe nouns or verbs. To add sentence variety, and this is the point of all this, because that's ultimately what we've been discussing the last couple of class periods. To add sentence variety, you can occasionally begin a sentence with an adverbial prepositional phrase. In other words, you begin a sentence with a prepositional phrase and it will describe what part of the sentence?
Independent clause?
It will describe what part of the independent clause. If it's acting as if it's acting as an adverb, it's going to describe the verb of the independent clause. Okay? For example, around the block, comma, the athletic girl ran. Notice the comma after the prepositional phrase. In a deep and loud voice, comma, the tiny man sang. If you begin a sentence with a prepositional phrase, you follow it with a comma. That prepositional phrase will describe the verb of the sentence, the main verb of the sentence. From Minneapolis, comma, we drove to New York. With incredible strength, comma, he lifted the weight. Typically, people put those prepositional phrases after the verb. We drove to New York from Minneapolis. He lifted the heavy weight with incredible strength. Well, I don't like that because it sounds like the weight has incredible strength. So I actually like that one better. This is a good way to add variety to sentences. If you begin every sentence with a prepositional phrase, is that going to be good? No. That would sound goofy. Your writing would have no variety. The idea is variety. The idea is to mix it up. So you're writing a paragraph. Maybe one sentence in that paragraph begins with a prepositional phrase. Okay? The same is true. If every single sentence is complex, there's no variety. If every single sentence is compound, there's no variety. We mix it up to add variety. What I want you to do there is come up with 3 or 4 examples of your own. Sentences that begin with prepositional phrases, followed by a comma and an independent clause. Ultimately, what we want to do is write good sentences. I'm trying to get you to understand the many different ways to write good sentences. Okay, so you got this big bag of sentence structures to pull from and utilize. Okay, now participial phrases are a little bit trickier. There are 2 types of participial phrases. That word participial sounds like the word participle. Remember how we learned past participles? Okay? Present participial phrases begin with an ing. These are actually easier. A phrase such as running through the woods, studying all night, watching a movie, attending St. Paul College, working at Target. Those are all participial phrases. And they're called, and the present participles all begin with an ing word. Now, past participles are a little bit more confusing for people. They begin with a past participle. Remember when we studied about past participles, it was in chapter 14?
Page 183.
Page, chapter 10.
Yep.
Okay, so turn to page 180 and let's find that list of past participles. I think it's 182, 183.
Yep.
Okay. Those are, if you look at the past participles, those past participles can begin, some of them can begin past participial phrases. For example, confused by the assignment. Known as Lady Gaga. Published in 1859. Okay? Now I don't expect you to understand this concept yet. We're going to practice using it in just a moment, and then that will give you a better understanding of it. Okay. Often, people put participial phrases after linking verbs. I was running through the woods when I tripped on a root. The student was confused by the assignment, so she approached the instructor. The problem is overusing linking verbs, am, is, are, was, were. Overusing them makes your writing weak. Now, it's certainly okay to use linking verbs. They're necessary, they're important, but if you're using them all the time, they make the writing weak. So I want to show you a way to use these past participles, and present participial phrases, without using linking verbs. To add sentence variety, you can occasionally begin a sentence with a participial phrase. It'll describe, and this is very important, it'll describe the subject of the independent clause. Here's an example. Running through the woods, I tripped on a stump. Studying all night, Manny forgot to let the dog out. Watching a movie, the kids enjoyed a tub of popcorn. You try. Give me two sentences that begin with an ing phrase, comma, independent clause. Okay? Attending St. Paul College. If you can't think of anything, use that one. Attending St. Paul College. I'm seeing good things. Now, I want to point out one possible problem when beginning sentences with participial phrases. And that is what's called a dangling modifier. Okay, basically, when you begin with a participial phrase, whether it's present or past, the very next word, the subject of the independent clause, needs to be the person or the thing doing the action in the participial phrase. Okay? So if we look at the example, walking through the woods, comma, I tripped on a stump. After walking through the woods, the subject, I'm the one walking through the woods. Now, let me show you a bad sentence. Sprinting to the bus stop, my backpack fell. Why is that bad?
Because it doesn't say who.
Well, it does. It says my back, according to the sentence, according to that sentence, the bad one, what was sprinting to the bus stop?
My backpack.
The backpack. According to this sentence, the backpack is sprinting to the bus stop. Does that make sense?
No.
No. So, you can correct that sentence, sprinting to the bus stop. The next word needs to be I, or whoever is doing the sprinting. Sprinting to the bus stop, I dropped my backpack. Okay? This one's bad. Playing video games until bedtime, comma, John's homework never got finished. How could I fix that?
John never finished his homework.
Excellent. Playing video games until bedtime, comma, John never finished his homework. So the subject of the independent clause needs to be who or whatever is doing the sprinting or the playing. Here's another dangling modifier. Tired by the heat, Abdi's lawn did not get mowed. That's a dangling modifier. You fix it. Tired by the heat, comma, what?
Abdi did not mow his lawn.
Abdi did not mow his lawn. Something like that.
Stuff from the past.
Writing the past? Okay, so you guys take another couple minutes just filling in those examples and fixing those sentences, and I'll continue to walk around. All right. As I promised Today has not been easy. And however, I think that the remaining activity, because you have come so far, is going to be manageable. What you are doing is the same thing you've done before, but I've added participial phrases and prepositional phrases. So I'm going to give you some sentences, and you're going to combine them following the format that I've given you. The sentences say, Kenyatta practices the drums every night. She is determined. She wants to play for the high school band. Let's do the first one together. And then I want you guys to finish the rest of the page, or as much as you can get through during class in groups. So how are you supposed to begin this new sentence?
Prepositional
With a
phrase.
prepositional phrase. Okay? And that's a little bit tricky. Yeah, let's look at that one. She is determined. Let's use... Can anyone turn determined into a noun for me? Say it again. Determination. Good. Let's use determination as the object of the preposition. So write a prepositional phrase that ends with the word determination. And that's tricky. Let's see if you guys can kind of collaborate and come up with a prepositional phrase.
Okay, you gotta turn this into a
It says she is determined, so what does she have? She has determination, right? So she is I'm looking for a preposition to begin that sentence.
With great determination?
Take the, you don't need the great, just the
With determination?
with determination. There you go. There you go. With determination. What's going on with determination?
Kenyatta plays drums for the high school every night.
Kenyatta practices the drums every night. Okay? And then I want a dependent clause.
Because she wants to play for the high school band.
All right. With determination, Kenyatta practices the drums every night. And then we have our dependent clause, because she wants to play for the high school okay. And that's what you're gonna get, that's what you guys are gonna do. Work together in groups of, in pairs or groups of 3, 4, 5 people, and work through the page.